right, everybody. Well, first of all, thank you not just for being here or being in the general session this morning, but the months of planning, not just for this Realcomm and IBcon, but for years. I mean, all of you have been part of this community for a long time. I know how busy you are. I know what it takes to get out for a couple days, but I really do appreciate that you find the time, and none of this works unless you are all willing to do that, and in some cases say, this thing is a mess, I have no idea what I'm doing, and get in a room with other people who think the same, right? So what we're going to do is just kind of continue on the conversation that we had this morning in the general session. And just for everybody watching, what we did over the last 3, 4, maybe even 5 months was we took the 120 topics that were coming to us via the surveys and Howard's conversations, and we tried to bubble up the top 6, and then each of you kind of oriented to the ones that kind of resonated with you. So Sineesh, why don't we start with you? You took ESG, but I also heard some other things you said about reacting and changing the whole way we look at IT. You want to just continue that thought?
Sure. I think we've dealt with crisis after crisis over the last 3 years, whether it's COVID, the supply chain crisis, now there's economic crisis. And as an industry, I think one of the takeaways that we should take from that is the fact that while historically it's been always beaten into us to be proactive as a IT leader and make sure that you have all your systems right, how do you deal with a disruption that no one saw coming? And I think the point I was making in the general session, which holds true, is for the most part, is that equal amounts proactive and reactive. Are we making sure that when we do get hit with this disruption, are we able to weather it? And some of the less sexy parts of our portfolios, whether it is your DR testing or your business continuity planning, are those shored up to meet these unexpected disruptions, was the point I was making. And I think it is something that we've learned over the last few years, certainly.
Well, analyze the DNA of the real estate industry versus the tech. Real estate industry, you build big buildings, you fail, you're fired. Tech, over the last few years, it says fail often and fail fast, right? So you got these two juxtaposing philosophies on how you should. But as real estate technologists, you have to be on both sides of the equation, right? I mean,
yeah, I think that's true, Jim. But I think the industry has also changed over time to embrace a little bit more of that fail fast.
Totally.
And very different from what it used to be, to your point, of never fail. It has to be right the first time. And which is true when you're dealing with leases. You don't want to collect the wrong rent, higher or lower. That was never the case. But in terms of some of the technology that we're introducing into our portfolios, into our properties, it's to me existential, certainly in office, and it has been in multifamily for years. And you can do a little bit more fail fast, and our organizations are more inclined to deal with that. So that's been a change.
I got really taught that lesson during COVID when we decided to do the in-person event and broadcast to the world. We had to go into that hotel, scrub it clean, bring in the COVID technologies, build a studio. We had never done this before, or not to this level. But honest to God, you say, okay, well, you have to adjust your strategy every 5 years, every 3 years, every 1 year, every 6. We were adjusting our strategy every 24 hours. And at one point I said to my team, I said, this is the new normal. We're going to set a goal, but in 24 hours we're going to have to totally abandon it and start over. Now I'm not suggesting that's what we get, but to your point, this flexibility and adaptability and not just being able to be proactive but reacting, I think it's part of your role.
Well, and I'm going to pick up on that because I would add that, I think the culture has changed, and we do want to adopt technologies and pilot technologies and figure out, what are they bringing to the table? What is the real ROI on those? And you want to do that before you try to get to scale. Yep. And in addition to the new technologies that continue to emerge and create some disruption, I would say, we're seeing a lot of there are players that, cease to exist after a few years, or they get acquired by larger companies. And so there's a lot of challenges in really understanding who your partners are today, and are they going to be the same version of themselves in the future. So, how do you insulate yourself so that you can continue to innovate in a forward direction and not feel like you picked the wrong horse along the way?
You actually brought, and I didn't get a chance to bring this up in the general session because we're running out of time, but I didn't get to say, I want you to know that all these people on this end, not only are they innovating, they have to innovate at scale. Mm-hmm. And then I was going to say, Prologis, Related, Hudson, or Hines, and I'm like, that's different than innovating at a small scale, mm-hmm. right? You can take chances on a one building or two, but you have to think it through. Why don't you address that a little bit about, to your point, where you have to make a decision and understand how big of a decision it is, and how by the time you get to the end of that rollout.
I tell you, so I'm sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I was just going to say, first of all, you don't eat the elephant all at once. You take little chunks at a time, and you do a proof of concept, and you do a pilot, and then you do a group of properties. And then you come up with a change management strategy to roll out to a portfolio that's very well thought through, that is staffed appropriately as well. That's how you make it work.
Well, and I would add to that, we're a global company, so what works in the North America may not also work in Europe, which may not work in APAC. So we leave room for some authenticity of what region you're in, and it's okay for us to have 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 solutions that might do similar things. We've got to quit playing the whack-a-mole game where everybody wants to do the same things 50 different ways, because you're paying the price in integration, you're paying the price in data normalization.
Well, in your business structure with partnerships, that adds a whole nother layer of complication, right? Because you have to kind of resell it to the different organizations. And
that's absolutely true, right? We have co-investors, and we have large tenants, and we have different asset classes. So I think we've got about every challenge you can think of, but we are very committed to scale, and we're leaving enough room to be individualistic in that way, which kind of brings up this whole idea of this integration platform of data and integration as a service. The reason we're taking that approach is because you can't have systems talk to each other, because then you are forever kind of tied to that structure, right? That spaghetti bowl of integration. So by saying we're going to have a single integration to a common communication platform, it allows us to be able to unplug technology and put a different technology in and kind of try different things.
You just made me think, how complex this all is. Who do you guys look to? Other than each other, do you look to other industries for some advice or best practices? I always looked at financial services, figuring out if E-Trade can get all these wholesale systems, retail systems, market systems to talk together so I can trade on my phone. That's who I always followed, right? And actually, tried to help the industry, even with this conference. Who do you look up to?
Well, so my experience prior to real estate was in financial services, retail, and data services. So in effect, I got a feel for multiple industries before I got to Prologis. And the funny thing is, Jim, I think at the end of the day, the problem statements largely remain the same. Everyone's thinking of data as their currency, wants to safeguard it. Everyone's looking for robust systems. Everyone's looking to go to the cloud, which Prologis has 100% cloud-based infrastructure. And so then data becomes your common unifying effect, if you will, between all the multiple SaaS solutions and all the infrastructure you have. So absolutely, I think we have a lot to learn from the other industries, and some of the, especially when it comes to your data infrastructure or your march towards net zero as part of ESG that we talked about, we could take cues from other.
Well, and I think one of the things we really should take a cue, especially from the financial services industry, is the level of respect and relationship a CIO has with the executive suite. I got to believe the CIO at JP Morgan is about 10 feet from Jamie Dimon's office. There's a different kind of, he knows he can't survive without that technical expertise. I'm not sure we have that yet. Joe?
I don't think we have it. Maybe we don't need it, because I think from the difference between real estate and financial services is scale. They can do something once, and because it's a lot of commoditization of the, for example, equities or debt, and real estate's different. It's unique. Each property is unique. Spencer said it today. Every asset, underlying asset is unique, and it's very difficult to just cookie cutter something across that's going to work for that asset. So our asset class is different, and we have to recognize that. So yes, we look to financial services, but it needs to be modified to fit our business always.
If I could take one thing and apply what I saw in financial services was this CIO-CEO relationship, because it is different. I mean, every major financial services firm, their CIO is elevated to a level, I think, that maybe you guys are because you're in high-profile firms, but you know many of your peers are considered the people who fix email, right? And that's not healthy. You know, that's not healthy. So we're out of time, but I want to go right down the line. We'll start with Sineesh. 30 seconds. You know, what is the insight, advice, suggestion you say to the world of your peers out there based upon where we're at and all this stuff we're seeing here? What do you say to them?
I think it kind of summarizes everything we've been talking about over the last day and a half. It's about staying connected with the ecosystem. Jeannie talked earlier about finding the right partners for enabling this journey. Most of our companies are going through some version of a digital transformation, an agile transformation, a data transformation, a cloud transformation, perhaps all of them mixed into one. And you need some good partners and thought leaders on that journey. And so staying connected is important.
The word partner has been used a lot so far today.
Absolutely.
And I think we all know we're ahead is troubled times for the industry. And I think we all just also need to keep our heads about us. We shouldn't stop innovating. We can't stop innovating, but we need to also be practical about where we are as an industry and where our companies are, how much they can invest, and focus on those ROIs. I think I was one of the people who brought up the hard ROI back.
Show me the ROI. You saw the cover.
That's what I do. I'm a recovering accountant. I can now admit that, and that's part of where I come from.
I think you said that in the one general session where you guys were up in the balcony. I think you made that reference. Jeannie?
I agree with Joe. I mean, I think, you know, we're seeing a transformation in our industry. I think that we're going to look back on and say, you know, when you put a timeline together, this was one of those very pivotal moments. And so, you know, we're talking to our executives about now's the time for the investment because we're positioned to come out of this like gangbusters. So, but we want to make sure that we're putting the right technology in, and they are asking for our ROI, right? Not for tech's sake. They want to know how is this going to drive tenants, drive the investor, you know, how are we going to become the best investor and manager in the world in that way? So we're being more deliberate about how we're applying technology.
I love this time. Honestly, compared to the last 10 years of hype and fluff and euphoria, I mean, I've been through 3 of those cycles. This is where the real innovation is going to happen. If history repeats itself, you're going to get more done in the next 5 years than you did the last 10. Because we have to.
I hope so.
We have to. No, I really believe that. Thank you all for everything. It's been a great time spending with you. And that's it, Mayor. We're wrapping.